SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
Surf Excel නම් භාගයයි මාසයකට වඩා රිදි සෝතයි.
Tonight, what's the deal? Today's rupee depreciation against the dollar despite $1.2 billion inflows raises eyebrows.
I'm surprised that the rupee has depreciated after so many weeks, exactly on the day when all these inflows have taken place into the central bank coffers. Seems strange, it should not have happened.
Full speed ahead. Health workers break another record, cruising past the 500,000 mark in vaccinations in a single day, yet again. Unacceptable terms. Teachers and principals unions reject the announced cabinet subcommittee interim proposal and warn of an intensification of their strike action. The sky is not the limit. The president declares emergency regulations on essential food supplies to prevent market irregularities. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Tuesday, the 31st of August, 2021.
දසනකාන්තී චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයිෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වලකයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammik Ekanaika. Now then, usually when a country receives a significant boost to its reserves, for example $1.2 billion US, and even that too within a week, you would usually expect it to be a good sign for its foreign exchange rates. However, despite Sri Lanka having received such a massive injection of US dollars this week, the rupee's selling rate reported by the central bank was 204.89 cents today, its highest against the US dollar. Addressing the issue today, State Minister of Money, Capital Market and State Enterprise Reforms, Ajit Niwad Cabral, said that he remains puzzled at the development as the central bank has already this week injected $200 million US into the forex market, which should have had the opposite effect on the rupee.
Speculation was rife today that the central bank had moved to depreciate the Sri Lankan rupee against the US dollar. Reported on the central bank website's daily US dollar buy and sell exchange section, the rupee is currently being reported at its highest ever rate of 204 rupees and 89 cents against the US dollar. However, the sudden change remains puzzling given the massive amount of funds that have come into the central bank's coffers in the past couple of weeks.
During the past week, there has been several receipts that has been received by the central bank. One was the special drawing rights from the IMF totaling $787 million, which has been added to the gross official reserves during the last few days. In addition, there has been an amount of $150 million from the Bangladesh Bank, which also has been now added to the central bank's reserve. In addition, there is a further $300 million, which I think has come in today from the China Development Bank. So there has been a substantial amount of money that has come in foreign exchange into the coffers of the central bank, which is about $1.2 billion.
According to State Minister Ajit Niwad Cabral, with the country having received a total of $1.2 billion US this month, the situation should ideally have resulted in an appreciation of the rupee instead. He added that such a puzzling development warrants some looking into to figure out whether this could be due to a technical error.
At a time when $1.2 billion has come into the market and the central bank has already started intervening from yesterday in the forex market by providing a supply of around $200 million to the market in order to ensure that all these containers that had been apparently piled up at the port be cleared, it's very strange that the rupee could have depreciated. So perhaps there has been some error, but I'm not sure what it is yet. However, we would look into that in due course to find out what the reason was. And I'm surprised that the rupee has depreciated after so many weeks, exactly on the day when all these new inflows have taken place into the central bank coffers. So it seems strange. It should not have happened, but let us examine the circumstances to understand more fully in the next couple of days as to what has happened, because it is actually the reverse that should have occurred.
Moving on with other stories, an expert on nephrology today urged the patients with non-communicable diseases, especially those suffering from kidney disease, to get vaccinated as soon as possible against COVID-19. He stressed that home treatment is not an option for them if they contract the virus. In the meantime, there was record vaccination rollout by the health authorities yesterday, with over 570,000 jabs being administered once more. Sri Lanka achieved another milestone in its vaccination drive yesterday after administering 571,589 vaccine doses against COVID-19. It is the highest single-day inoculations the country has seen since the rollout first began towards the beginning of the year. The lion's share of yesterday's vaccinations were second-dose administrations. 488,158 people received their second dose of the Sinopharm vaccine, while 48,280 of its first doses were also administered. Among them were 11,951 persons who received the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine, while 653 persons were administered with its second dose. There were also 12 recipients of the first dose of the Pfizer vaccine, and 1,662 were given the second dose of the same jab. As for the Moderna vaccine, 16 people were given the first dose, with 20,857 getting their second. By last evening, 7,703,411 people had been fully vaccinated, leaving 4,702,168 people with partial vaccination. In total, 12,423,579 people had received at least the first dose of a vaccine against COVID. In the meantime, 15,000 more Sputnik vaccine doses arrived in the island from Russia this morning. They are to be administered in Kandy as part of the second dose rollout. Though Sri Lanka's vaccination drive is moving forward at rapid pace, a large number of people who have received Russia's Sputnik vaccine are still in limbo, awaiting the second dose. Though the gap between doses was originally supposed to be 3 weeks, the vaccine manufacturer, the Gamaleya Research Centre, said in April that the gap could be increased to 3 months, and it may even prolong the effects of the jab. Commenting on the matter today, State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, offered an explanation as to why the second dose of the Sputnik jab is delayed.
Sri Lanka තුල Sputnik එන්නත ලබාගත් පුද්ගලයන්ගෙන් මේ වෙනකොට තවත් 1,20,000ක පමණ පිරිසක් සිටිනවා මහනුවර දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ එන්නත ලබා ගන්න. ආපු 15,000 ඒ කණ්ඩායමත් ඉවත් කරාට පස්සේ. ඇත්තටම රුසියාවේ පැන නැගුණ තත්ත්වය පහුගිය මාස කිහිපය තුල විශේෂයෙන්ම ලෝකයේ ඉහළම මරණ ප්‍රමාණයක් වාර්තා වෙන රටවල් කිහිපෙන් එකක් බවට රුසියාව පත් වුණා. ඒක නිසා වුන් තීරණයක් ගත්තා. ස්පුට්නික් එන්නත රුසියාවෙන් පිටතට යවන්න ප්‍රමාද කරන්න තීරණයක් ගත්තා. කෙසේ නමුත් අපි දිගින් දිගටම ඉල්ලීම් කරා මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන්. එතකොට අපිට 15,000 බැගින් දෙපාරකට මේ වෙනකොට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා පහුගිය සති දෙක තුල. ඉදිරි සති කීපෙදී අවශ්‍ය ඉතිරි ස්පුට්නික් දෙවනි මාත්‍රා ප්‍රමාණය අපේ රටට ලබා දෙනවා කියලා ඒ නිෂ්පාදන සමාගම අපිට දැනුම් දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒක නිසා මම හිතන්නේ නැහැ ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇති වෙයි කියලා මහනුවර දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ ස්පුට්නික් එන්නත ලබාගත්ත සියලු දෙනාටම ස්පුට්නික් දෙවනි මාත්‍රාවම ලබා දෙන්න පුළුවන් ඒ කියන විශ්වාසය අපේ තියෙනවා.
Health experts continue to urge people with underlying health conditions to be vaccinated, especially those with kidney disease.
Especially the patients with chronic kidney disease has experienced severe symptoms due to COVID-19 pneumonia. Further, patients who are having other non-communicable diseases are also found to be at increased risk of developing acute kidney injury. This risk is varying from 10 to 40% in the studies done in the Western countries. All these people should be vaccinated against COVID-19, and all the available vaccines in the country are suitable for this purpose. And we recommend that these patients be vaccinated with both doses, and the full immunity will be developed in these patients after taking the second dose of the vaccine. To avoid being affected by COVID-19, we encourage people to get both vaccines completed, and to prevent complications developing from their illnesses, we ask their patients to continue their routine medications and follow the routine clinic visits, and also by avoiding the crowded places. If a family member is infected in a chronic kidney disease patient's family, patient should also test for the COVID-19 infection, and if becomes positive, should get advice from their respective medical or kidney disease clinics. We do not recommend home treatment for patients who are post-kidney transplant, patients who are on dialysis, or patients who are in end-stage renal failure. Other patients in earlier stages of chronic kidney disease can contact their clinics and get advice if they infected to see whether they are suitable for home treatment or not.
Though the country is under lockdown, the vaccination drive continues. However, there have been claims of masses gathering at vaccination centres outside the Western Province. The Ministry of Health today had a word of advice for those in a hurry to be vaccinated.
I would like to request the public to avoid rushing into the vaccination centres. The problem at the moment is limited availability of vaccines. Always Sri Lanka is getting less amount of vaccines that we expect to administer within our system. As a result, a limited number of vaccines stocks are distributed to different provinces, districts, and there will be a shortage of vaccines at a given time compared to the demand that is existing in these areas. However, the Ministry of Health is expecting to vaccinate all eligible people as and when the vaccine stocks comes. So therefore, wait until your turn comes, where the time, the place for vaccination will be informed by your area MOH, and go to get the vaccine at that time on that date, so that there will be no unnecessary rush into the vaccination program.
Now, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has declared emergency regulations on several essential foods, or food items, I should say, in a move to prevent stocks being concealed by suppliers and distributors. To head the new program, Major General MD SP Nunalla has been appointed as the Commissioner General of Essential Services. In the meantime, health experts are of the view that the benefits of the quarantine curfew can only be enjoyed if the public play their part by staying indoors and avoiding unnecessary movement. The island-wide quarantine curfew, which was initially set to be lifted at 4 a.m. yesterday, was extended until the 6th of September on Friday the 27th of August. The decision was made with the aim of controlling the spread of the COVID-19 virus in the country. With 5 more days remaining before the curfew is lifted, health experts once again urge the public to adhere to the measures in place if the country is to see the expected benefits of the lockdown.
All benefits of limiting travel or imposing stringent health guidelines would result in limiting the spread of the diseases only under one condition, that the people are adhering to such stringent travel restrictions as well as the health guidelines. And also I would like to emphasize the authorities concerning the general public day-to-day affairs, where when the restrictions are relaxed, we have seen the situation comes back to normal, where crowding of people in commercial centers has been observed, crowding of people in transport modes have been observed. I would like to urge all stakeholders in this process to plan ahead and make sure that this is not going to be repeated after relaxing the travel restrictions and health guidelines in the future.
In the meantime, 498 more persons have been arrested during the period between 6 a.m. yesterday and 6 a.m. today for violating the quarantine curfew. Meanwhile, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa declared emergency regulations formulated as per the Section 5 on essential food supply with effect from midnight yesterday by enforcing directives under the Section 2 of the Public Security Ordinance. The authorised officers will be able to take steps to provide essential food items at concessionary rate to the public by purchasing stocks of essential food items including paddy, rice and sugar at government guaranteed prices or based on the customs value on imported goods. The measure was taken to prevent market irregularities which are causing inconvenience to consumers due to concealing of stocks of essential food items, including paddy, rice and sugar. This will be implemented in such a way that the loans granted to purchase stocks from the state banks could be recovered from the borrowers. Further, Major General MD SP Nunalla has been appointed as the Commissioner General of Essential Services to coordinate the supply of paddy, rice, sugar and other consumer goods that are essential to maintaining the livelihoods of the people. In the meantime, the Ministry of Agriculture has decided to reopen the country's dedicated economic centres tomorrow and the day after for wholesale trade. State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, today made note that a particular antibody cocktail used in COVID treatment, referred to by the opposition leader, was in fact approved as far back as 23rd of June in Sri Lanka. On Saturday, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa urged the government to look into the procurement of the said drug, as his friends in the United States call it a wonder drug. State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, today responded to the comments of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, who urged the government to look into procuring the antibody cocktail Casirivimab, Imdevimab for COVID treatment. The opposition leader took to Twitter on Saturday and said that the US Food and Drug Administration had authorized a drug for mild to moderate COVID patients who are at risk of progressing to severe COVID.
2021 6වෙනි මාසේ 23 වෙනිදා ජූනි මාසේ 23 වෙනිදා මේ කියන ඖෂධය සඳහා ජාතික ඖෂධ නියාමන අධිකාරිය අනුමැතිය ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒ සඳහා ලිපිය තමයි මේ තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට එතුමා කතා කරන්න මාස දෙකකට ඉස්සෙල්ලම මේ සඳහා අනුමැතිය ලබා දීලා තිනවා මේ රටේ ජාතික ඖෂධ නියාමන අධිකාරියේ විශේෂඥයන් විසින් සීමිත අනුමැතියක් ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා යම් යම් සීමා කොන්දේසි වලට යටත්ව. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපේ රටේ ඖෂධයක් වෙළඳ ප්‍රචාරණ කටයුතු කරන්න බෑ. වෙළඳ ප්‍රචාරණ කටයුතු කරන්න පුළුවන් ඖෂධ කිහිපයක් තියෙනවා. නමුත් ඡාතිශය බහුතර ඖෂධ පිළිබඳ වෙළඳ ප්‍රචාරණ කරන්න බෑ. නමුත් මේ සමාගම එම නීති රීති වලට බැහැරව පටහැනිව යමින් මේකී සුවිශේෂ ඖෂධය පිළිබඳ ප්‍රචාරණ කටයුතු සිදු කරන්න පටන් ගත්තා. ඒක නිසා ජාතික ඖෂධ නියාමන අධිකාරියේ මේ විද්වත් කමිටුව ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් කටයුතු කරන විශේෂඥ වෛද්‍යවරු තීරණය කරා මෙසේ ජනමාධ්‍ය තුලින් ප්‍රචාරයක් ලබා දීලා මේ ඖෂධය පිළිබඳව ප්‍රචාරණයක් ලබා දීම මගින් ඒකට COVID-19 රෝගය වැළැක්වීම සඳහා ගෙන යන වැඩ පිළිවෙලටත් බාධාවක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම නීති රීති උල්ලංඝනය කරලා තියෙන නිසා తాවකාලිකව එම ඖෂධය ඒ ගෙන්වන සමාගමට යම්කිසි තහනමක් පැනවිය යුතුයි කියලා.
Professor Jayasumana also clarified that the drug the opposition leader urges the usage of is not accepted to be capable of preventing the disease or curing COVID.
මේ ඖෂධය COVID-19 රෝගය වැළැක්වීම සඳහා අත්‍යවශ්‍ය ඖෂධයක් හෝ එය ලබා දුන් පමණින් මේ රෝගය වැළඳීම නැවතින්නේ එහෙම නැත්නම් වැළඳුණු රෝගයක් සුවපත් කරන්න 100% හැකියාවක් හෝ ප්‍රමාණවත් හැකියාවක් තියෙන ඖෂධයක් හැටියට පිළිගැනීමක් තිබුණ එකක් නෙමෙයි. හැබැයි සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මැතිතුමා දිගින් දිගටම කියනවා මේ ඖෂධය ගෙන එන්න ඕන කියලා. මේකෙන් වෙන්නේ ජනතාව තුළ වැරදි අදහසක් යනවා. මේ ඖෂධය ලබා ගත්තොත් රෝගය හොඳ වෙනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් රෝගය හැදෙන එක වළක්ව ගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. ඇත්තටම විශේෂිත තත්ත්වයන් යටතේ ඇතැම් රෝගීන්ට පමණක් ලබා දිය යුතු ඊටාම මිල අධික ඖෂධ තමයි මේවා. එතකොට එහෙම ඖෂධ පිළිබඳව විශේෂඥ වෛද්‍යවරයෙක් නිර්දේශ කළොත් පමණමයි මේ ඖෂධය ලබා දෙන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ. ඒකට දේශපාලඥයෙක්ට තීරණය කරන්න බෑ මේ ඖෂධය ලබා දෙනවාද නැද්ද කියන කාරණේ.
The state minister added that after the relevant company notified in writing that they will not breach the regulations, the suspension has been lifted, allowing the company to import the drug. Now, several new cabinet decisions were announced today by cabinet co-spokesperson Dr. Ramesh Patirana, including the calling for expressions of interest from private sector investors looking to get in on the government's renewable energy plans. The government plans to meet 70% of the country's energy needs through renewable means by 2030. with its goal being to increase wind capacity by 3,500 megawatts and solar capacity to 4,800 megawatts. Dr. Patiran added that the Ministry of Energy looks forward to assisting investors in earmarking the right land for their plans.
At the weekly cabinet media briefing held this morning, the latest government decisions taken at last evening's cabinet meeting were announced. Among them was a decision on the allocation of additional provisions for the payment of widows, widowers and orphans' pensions. Accordingly, measures have been taken to grant the allocation of 19 billion rupees under the vote of the Department of Pensions through the Special Rules Authority Supplementary Permit signed by the Minister of Finance. Meanwhile, the Cabinet also gave the go-ahead to enter into an agreement with the International Bank for World Bank Group Reform and Development to secure $92 million for Phase 1 of the multi-stage climate mitigation program. Negotiation discussions have been held with the relevant parties to raise the necessary funds for the implementation of the project under 3 phases at a total estimated cost of $434 million. Further, the Cabinet has also decided to call for expressions of interest to implement renewable energy projects under private sector investments in order to reach the government's target of meeting 70% of the country's energy needs through renewable means by 2030. With hydropower development in the country having already reached critical levels, the country needs to focus away from water to the sun and the wind for its power needs. With that, Cabinet co-spokesperson Dr. Ramesh Pathirana says that the government is open to proposals being submitted by prospective investors that will include locations identified and earmarked for such projects through liaising with the subject ministry.
Actually, the government has called for the expression of interest, EOI, for the both wind power and solar power projects. As I mentioned, we are looking forward to improve the capacity up to 3,500 megawatts by wind power and also increase the capacity to 4,800 megawatts by solar power. So the exact locations, the investors would liaise with the ministry to identify the exact locations. They can forward their proposals with their quotations.
Now then, the Cabinet of Ministers has given the green light to a proposal by the Cabinet Subcommittee on the teachers' and principals' salary issues, which will see the anomalies being removed in stages via the 2022 budget. It also includes a 5,000 rupee allowance for the next 2 months until the budget proposal comes around in November. Though the government expected cooperation from the trade unions moving forward, the unionists are in fact rejecting the proposal point blank. 51 days have now gone by since the teachers and principals trade unions urged their members island-wide to withdraw from the online education process, leaving over 4 million students in the country in limbo. Their primary demand continues to be the elimination of salary anomalies, though the union leaders also roped teachers in the country to back their calls to do away with the Kotalawala Defence University bill, though many teachers either did not have adequate knowledge of the bill or care for it. 3 weeks ago, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa appointed a cabinet subcommittee to look into the matter and make recommendations. The committee submitted a set of proposals to the cabinet last week following talks with unionists, and yesterday it was approved by the cabinet. What the cabinet has decided on is a step-by-step approach to removing the salary anomalies. Accordingly, a Gazette notification is to be issued before the 20th of November this year, declaring teacher service, teacher advisory service and principal services as closed services. Then, the implementation of the salary revisions recommended by the Cabinet Subcommittee to eliminate the salary anomalies of teachers and principals is to be done in stages through the 2022 budget proposal. The subcommittee has also recommended the granting of a special allowance of 5,000 rupees for teachers and principals who are on duty during the months of September and October 2021. The Ministry of Education will also take necessary steps in collaboration with the provincial councils and other relevant authorities to implement the other proposals of the subcommittee within 6 months. On the matter, new Minister of Education Dinesh Gunawardena had this to say at the cabinet media briefing conducted this morning.
අවුරුදු එකහමාරක් පාසල් වැහිලා තිබෙන්නේ. අපේ දරුවන් ලක්ෂ 43කට ඒ අවස්ථාව කොවිඩ් වසංගතය නිසා නොලැබී ගොස් තිබෙනවා. තම අධ්‍යාපනය ලබා දීමේ වැඩසටහන ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම බලාපොරොත්තුවෙන් සහයෝගය සියලු ගුරු පරම්පරාවගෙන් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඒ නිසා 5000 දීමනාවක් එකතු කරලා මේ මාසෙට සැප්තැම්බර් මාසෙට ඔක්තෝබර් මාසෙට අයවැය ලේඛනය නොවැම්බර් මාසෙ ඒ ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කිරීමෙන් ඉදිරියට ගමන් කරන්න විශ්වාසය සියලු අධ්‍යාපන ශාස්ත්‍රයේ විදුහල්පති ගුරු පරම්පරාවට වගකීමක් ඇති රජයක් ලෙස ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නට පුළුවන්කම ලැබෙනවා. සමහර අය නොගන්න පුළුවන්, සමහර අය ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ නිසා ඒ විශාල ප්‍රශ්නයක් ලෙස මේ දීමනාව නොගෙන සිටීම සලකන්නට බෑ. වගේම අපොස සාමාන්‍ය විභාගයේ ප්‍රතිඵල නිකුත් කිරීම ප්‍රමාද වී තිබෙනවා. සෞන්දර්ය විෂය සඳහා ප්‍රායෝගික විභාග පැවැත්වීමට අද ඇති කර තිබෙන බාධාවන් නිසා මේවා ගැන ගැඹුරු සැලකිල්ලක් කිරීම අවශ්‍යයි කියලා අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා.
The trade unions, however, rejected the proposal approved by the cabinet. They say that the Subodhini Committee report proposes 31,000 rupees for a Class 1 teacher and the cabinet-approved proposal only approves 11,000 rupees. They claim that the ministerial subcommittee which made the proposal and the cabinet have not considered any of their demands. The unionists claim that the government has dangled a 5,000 rupee allowance which they did not want and have not addressed the real issue.
Big 3.
Now in other stories, the last US military aircraft took off from the Hamid Karzai International Airport in Afghanistan a minute before it struck midnight last night. sending Taliban fighters across the city into celebrations for what they believe is the end of the war. However, there are still hundreds of US and British citizens waiting to catch flights out of the country after having missed the last flight. Meanwhile, Cabinet co-spokesperson Dr. Ramesh Patirana confirmed today that 21 Sri Lankans have chosen to stay back in the embattled country and continue with their work.
Taliban militants fired into the air all across Afghanistan's capital Kabul today, overjoyed by the completion of the withdrawal of US military personnel from the country. Following the departure of the last US military flight 1 minute before midnight last night, Kabul's Hamid Karzai International Airport was finally taken over by Taliban forces. An image from the Pentagon taken with night vision optics showed the last US soldier to step aboard the final evacuation flight out of Kabul, Major General Chris Donahue, the commander of the 82nd Airborne Division. The departing US troops destroyed more than 70 aircraft, dozens of armored vehicles, and disabled air defenses that had thwarted an attempted Islamic State rocket attack on the eve of the departure. However, a contingent of Americans estimated by US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken to be as few as 200 and possibly closer to 100 wanted to leave but were unable to get on the last flights. Meanwhile, British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab put the number of UK nationals in Afghanistan in the low hundreds, following the evacuation of some 5,000 so far. Meanwhile, back home, Cabinet co-spokesperson Dr. Ramesh Patirana was quizzed at the weekly Cabinet media briefing on the fate of Sri Lankans in the country, where he stated that there are about 21 who have opted to stay back and go about their business.
Actually, we have taken all the measures to ensure that we evacuate all the Sri Lankans, those who wish to come back to Sri Lanka. But I understand about 21 people who are not willing to return to motherland due to different reasons. But apart from that, the ambassador to Afghanistan, who is come out from that scenario, he's constantly engaged in relation to evacuating Sri Lankans. That would become a success. And also about the second matter that you raised, the foreign ministry would take a policy decision about it.
Now, there has been a twin elephant birth today at the Pinnavela Elephant Orphanage in Kegel. A 24-year-old cow elephant named Surangi had given birth to its first calf at 4:30 this morning, and 5.5 hours later she had given birth to the second calf. According to the orphanage authorities, the newborn calves and the mother are in good health. Further, Deputy Director of the Department of National Zoological Gardens, Renuka Bandarnayaka, said that the health of the two newborns and the mother are being constantly monitored by the orphanage veterinarians. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.